Hello and welcome. This is Lisa Marker Robbins. I am the founding CEO of LEAP. We are a test prep company and private college guidance. We're here today because there's, as it continues throughout COVID, lots of breaking news as it relates to ACT and SAT testing. So I'm just going to say the date because what we're doing today is time sensitive. So anybody who's watching this as a webinar later, you're definitely going to want to know what the date is. So it is Wednesday, July the 1st at 12:30 in the afternoon. So I say that because on Monday of this week, ACT sent an email to many families to let them know that they have been displaced for the July 18th ACT. Late timing, horrible timing, and nobody is more dismayed and upset by that than the team here at LEAP. Sherry Elmore is our ACT SAT director. Karen No is our tutoring director. We are on the front lines with you all and here to help. We're in your corner. We are disappointed as well. So we want to kind of update everybody on what we know from ACT, from the schools that we've been talking to in the greater Cincinnati area. So the early part of this will be specific to the greater Cincinnati area, but then I want to give you information that is good for you no matter where you live. So what we know, July 18th is supposed to be the next ACT and the last official one for the 2019-2020 school year. What we do know is July is always a test date with limited availability. So for instance, in June of every year, had there not been COVID, there were, I think, about 26 greater Cincinnati, just on the Ohio side of the river, not even going into Indiana, Kentucky, 26 test locations that were available. For July 18th, there were supposed to be 10 test locations that were going to be available. You know what, and I want to pull up the questions feature. If you guys have questions, you can send them in, but just give me a little bit to get you guys up to speed first, and then I'll start taking questions. So, and you just use that question feature that is represented by the question mark on your screen to send those in. So July 18th should have only had about 10 testing centers, and that's normal. The summer test date's a newer one. This was only going to be the third year for it, and high schools generally like to have their buildings closed in July so they can get them cleaned and ready for the coming school year. Then COVID happened, right? So lots of families, April ACT had been canceled, June, most test sites had been canceled, and we were all hopeful that July would take place. So here's what happened. ACT has never canceled the July test date. So July 18th is a real ACT test date. Some high schools throughout the United States and heavily here in Cincinnati made the decision that they did not feel that they were able to follow ACT and state protocol and safely test students. So they decided to close their testing center. So an example of that would be Mason High School, which is the largest high school in the state of Ohio. So huge bummer. LEAP, we are located in Mason, so we've had a huge number of students affected by that. Then there were schools that said, nope, we're going to test. We feel we can do so safely. Hey, we're starting school a month later, so we better figure this out. And we really greatly appreciate schools like the Kings Local School District, St. Xavier High School, Mount Notre Dame High School, who stepped up to the plate and said, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to provide testing. However, because of social distancing, they had to reduce the number of students who were going to be able to test at their site. So what we found was some of our students who were previously registered at those test sites got a notification on Monday evening that they were not able to test there any longer. That test site is open, but they were not chosen to take place. Sherry and I were looking into that this morning. Essentially what they did was if there were rising juniors who were registered, they were out because they still have plenty of time to test before they apply to college over a year from now. Then the rising seniors, what they did was they looked at basically first come, first serve. And so I know in the case of Kings High School, they had 100 seats available. So I guess starting with person 101, who was a senior rising senior that had registered, they were out, unfortunately. Now, shame on ACT, in our opinion, because the email that they sent those families was terribly misleading. There is a line in there, because I've had lots of people forward it to me, that said that you can reschedule to an open place on July 18th. Well, I'll just speak for the Cincinnati area. There are no open sites. They're all full. So there are sites that are taking place, but they're all full. But yet some of our students who had been displaced were kind of led to believe that it would be an option to test elsewhere. And I'm going to tell you a story right now about a LEAP client. So this family, they were registered to test at Kings High School. She received an email on Monday saying, and you can see the thread on our Facebook page if you want to follow the discussion on this. What a debacle. So the young lady was scheduled to test at Kings High School. She was, after the first 100 people. So she received an email Monday evening from ACT saying, you will not be able to test at that test center. So the mom called in to ACT on Tuesday to try to get this whole reschedule piece figured out. When she called in, they said, oh, sure, we're going to reschedule you for Mason High School. So the mom puts this in the Facebook chat over in the LEAP page, and I said, Mason High School, somebody that works at Mason notified me on Friday that they are not testing, and ACT just registered you for a closed testing site. Oh my gosh, not good. So at that point, the mom calls back in and they say, oh, our bad. This is a classic example. Sherry put it great this morning. She said the left hand's not talking to the right, or I guess that's probably the opposite because I'm on camera. Anyway, left's not talking to the right, right's not talking to the left. So they said, oh gosh, our mistake. I guess you, the parents, right? You would think ACT would know what sites are closed or not. We're going to reschedule you to West Claremont High School out in Batavia. The mom posts that on the Facebook page. I promptly respond. West Claremont decided in early June or May that they would not be hosting July. So in May, West Claremont High School contacted me, Lisa, directly via email and said, hey, we decided not to offer the June test. I said, totally understand. Not more than a week later, I get an email from the same individual who says, after further discussing it, we won't be offering July 18th either. This mom is saying to me, I've got an admission ticket to test at West Claremont and had one for Mason on July 18th, and neither of those are actual test sites. So the communication from ACT has been horrible. So don't shoot the messenger. We're here to help. So that's one situation. So there is a list of rescheduled test centers. If you go to the ACT.org website, and you go over to click on the COVID, and then they have something about rescheduled test centers, or you could just Google ACT test July rescheduled test centers. It will take you to the list that they claim is being updated daily. They will take you to the list of schools that have been rescheduled. When I looked at that list this morning, and it was deemed to be accurate as of July 1st, Kings High School was on that list as a closed and rescheduled test center. But I had direct communication from the testing coordinator for the district and the high school principal that said, no, we're offering the test. So, Mason and West Claremont are listed on that. I tweeted a kind of nasty tweet. Haven't had a reply yet from ACT that their list is not accurate. So take that with a grain of salt what that list is. It looks mostly accurate to me, but I know, from what I've been told by the leadership at Kings, they are hosting, and ACT, for whatever reason, thinks that they aren't. So take that with a grain of salt. So many of you are now saying, what now? And this will apply to anybody in Cincinnati or outside of Cincinnati. So the 2021 ACT registration will open on July 27th. ACT, this makes me a little nervous. ACT is promising a new and improved, we will see, registration process for the next school year. So that opens on 7/27. At that point, that means students are able to schedule for an ACT anytime from September 2020 through July of 2021. They open them all at once, okay? So that will happen. The next scheduled official ACT is on Saturday, September the 12th. Okay, and there was already another one scheduled for Saturday, October 24th. ACT announced last week, and we always put this up as breaking news on social media, and those of you that want to enroll on our text alert system, you just text ACT SAT, all one word, ACT SAT, to the number 555-888, and then we send out those alerts on things like this. So last week they added 5 more dates to the September-October testing cycle. Now, what schools are going to step up to host that remains to be seen, but they have nationally added 5 more dates. 2 of those dates are Sunday testing. Sunday testing, so one of them is September 13th, the other one is October 25th. Normally, Sunday testing is reserved for those people for religious reasons who Saturdays are Sabbath and they can't test on a Saturday. What we have learned from Sherry and I belong to a group of test prep professionals throughout the United States, and what we've learned from some of our friends in other areas of the country is they are seeing ACT being very lenient with Sunday testing. So I would recommend that if you feel like Sunday testing might, if you can get into a Sunday test date, that's an option. They said, I have heard before, and this will remain to be seen on the new registration site, that Sunday testing is not like obviously available. You have to kind of poke around for it. So it might be more obvious, I guess, on the new registration page, but we don't know yet. So Sunday testing is an option. Then breaking news also is that there is going to be, no section retesting. So about 10 months ago, ACT, or 11 and a half, ACT announced that they would start doing section retesting effective September 2020. With all else that's going on, that is now on hold indefinitely with no definite date to roll that out. I don't think that's bad, because out of the 4,000 universities in the United States, we only had a handful, like 5 or fewer, that had said that they would absolutely accept section retesting scores. We had more schools than that already come out and say they absolutely would not accept section retesting scores. So section retesting was making me a little bit nervous. They are still rolling out widely, nationally, online testing options starting in September. That is dependent, though, on a school system saying that they are willing, they have the technical infrastructure, and they are willing and able to offer online testing. As I've talked to the schools that are typically host sites that are in our area, many of them say that, even if a couple of them have even said to me, we meet the specifications, but we don't yet want to try it. So I don't know that that's going to be widely available. Another question, will there be priority registration for these September and October test dates? We don't know. Our best guess is yes. SAT did offer priority registration, and this is what it looked like from SAT. And I would have to say that based on how ACT decided who was in and not in at reduced capacity sites, I would guess that this is probably going to happen this fall. So my best guess is this fall, priority will first go to seniors who have not had an opportunity to take an ACT yet. Next would be seniors who are doing a retest, and then juniors, you're going to have to get in line behind them. Okay, so that's my best guess what will likely happen this fall. So now this leads to what I'm going to answer a couple. I got a question here, so you can start sending questions, and we're going to talk about how colleges are going to treat this next, And we're also going to talk about test optional and other avenues that are open to you. And then we've had a lot of people say like, hey, what's your guys' recommendation if we got displaced and now we're going to test in the fall? What do you recommend? So question that just came in. Can you reschedule for September 13th now, or do you have to wait until July 27th? And what about the fee we paid for July 18th? Okay, great question, Susan. You have to wait until July 27th. So nobody's able to register for the September test dates now. The way ACT, Sherry actually is the mom of a rising senior. Her son has been displaced as well, along with you guys. So as early as he was displaced in April, then June. So she's been doing this herself. The email typically says that you go ahead and you register for the next test date. And then once you've done so, and you'll pay for that at the time that you register, then they will refund you your previous registration fees. So Susan, my best guess, and you'd have to look at your email and see what they're saying now, but my best guess is on July 27th, you will register for, you're saying you want September 13th, you'd register for September 13th, you pay for it at that time, and then ACT would refund you your July 18th at some point. So some of you I know are going to decide not to test at all, and they will just refund you your money. Okay, Angela's got a question for us. Do you know if students testing in July will be required to wear face coverings while taking the test? I don't know. I don't think they're required. I do think they're taking temperatures, but I don't know that for sure. So I would head over to the ACT website. Okay, I'm gonna go on and then I'm gonna come back to questions, okay? So let's talk about the colleges and how they're viewing it, and you guys are coming up against college applications. I know right now I'm working with a lot of my private advising students on essays and applications, and we're looking at, are we submitting, are we not? So first of all, almost all colleges at this point have gone test optional for the class of 2021. Class of 2022, that does not mean that these same schools will be test optional for you. So a lot of the colleges, particularly the colleges that were late to the test optional game, are only right now test optional for the class of 2021. So don't count on it, class of 2022 for you, because frankly, you have a lot of time left to test, okay? Because you can test up through the fall of your senior year, and you guys aren't actually officially even juniors yet, even though it feels like it. So I'm really, right now what I'm saying is applicable to the class of 2021. So for every college in the United States, if you test in September, you will have no problem meeting your college application deadlines and getting your scores in on time, okay? For a lot of schools, even if you test in October, as late as October 24th, 25th weekend, which is the latest October dates for the ACT, you should be fine as well to get your stuff in, because schools are being pretty flexible with this, okay? Now, they're showing a lot of flexibility. I'm going to give you an example. And this is a question that you have to ask every college individually to get the answer to. There's no like one clearinghouse for this. So some colleges have done this historically. Some are going to be doing it now because of COVID. Say that, okay, if we have a November 1st deadline, that means that everything that the student is submitting needs to be in by November 1st at 11:59 p.m. in the student's time zone. Okay, that's how that rule goes as far as college application deadlines. Now, if the ACT score arrives after November 1st, but within a reasonable amount of time. So let's say the student tested October 24th. The student has all of their materials in by 11:59 p.m. their time, student's time, on November 1st, but the scores for the October 24th ACT arrive on November 5th. Many, I'm going to even guess most colleges are going to say, that's okay, we'll still take those scores, okay? So that's one way that this works. Some colleges historically have even said, and this again, you got to check with each college, have said if the student has the application in, their essay, their application, all their parts, but even if the high school transcript comes after the deadline or the test scores come after the deadline, that's okay. Other schools take a hard, fast line and say, nope, 11:59 p.m., that deadline day, everything, including the transcripts and the test scores, have to be received. I think we're going to see a lot of flexibility on that going into the fall, okay? Now, you have the option with test optional to send scores or not send scores. Now, Georgia Tech is not test optional still. They're one of the few schools that have said we're not doing it. Absolutely not. We have schools that were really, what I'll say is late to the test optional dance that, even as of last week, finally announced that they were going to go test optional. I'm going to give you a good example with that, one of those schools in just a second. And I'm going to say it's the largest school in Ohio, so stay tuned. So if you're going to take the option, or you're wondering, should we apply test optional to our college? First of all, I would say look at what the average ACT or SAT score is for the last year's admitted freshmen for that school. Pull that data. If you are at or above their 50% average for the college, or perhaps your program, if you're applying to a selective program, then if you're at or above, I would go ahead and apply with scores. I wouldn't withhold the scores. Know that for some of you, test optional is going to be a problem. Nursing students have to have scores. Many schools require international and homeschool students to have scores, and some of them are making an exception this year, but some of them are still not making an exception for that. Some schools will allow you to apply test optional for admission, but they're requiring scores for merit scholarship consideration. Again, there's no one like central clearinghouse to get all this information. So you're really going to need to go onto the school website and see what their rules are. And I would also say continue to revisit that. This is in flux. This is changing. That's why I started this webinar saying what the date and the time is. So that's super important. And I also want you to keep in mind that in the college application process, many things are optional. So it's not just that test scores are optional. No college says to a student, don't apply here if you don't have community service. Pursuing community service is a student's option. No college says, only apply here if you've got extracurricular activities or you have academic honors. All of those things are optional. So colleges like more information by which to make their decisions. So I don't want you to just view test scores as optional. I want you to view community service, academic honors, extracurriculars. All of those things are optional. In some cases, some colleges say the personal statement, aka college essay, is also optional. And for my students, if they've written one, I say submit it. Some colleges, Ohio State would be an example, say it is optional to submit a letter of recommendation. But I've never in 21 years at my job known somebody to apply to Ohio State and not submit a teacher recommendation letter. You are given the option to submit one recommendation letter at Ohio State. You're not required to submit any. I've never known a student to not submit one. So optional doesn't mean don't do it. Optional means look at who you are in relation to who's been getting into that college in the last couple of years. And if these things are at or above the average, then you should submit them. And we will consider them in light of your entire application. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's talk about these colleges that were late to the game. So Ohio State announced Monday of last week that they were moving to test optional. So I would say and the Ivy League schools were really late to the game as well. So these are examples of schools that went into the test optional game, the dance. They entered the dance very late, and I would say they had their heels dug in and they were trying not to do it. Now, why would they do that? That is an indicator that those colleges feel that strong scores are an indicator of who succeeds on their campus, and that is information that they desire to have if at all possible. This year for the class of 2021, if you don't have those scores, and a couple of the Ivy League sites literally say, like, if you did not have the opportunity to test, you may apply test optional for the class of 2021 only. I think if, please, life returns to normal in the future, we're going to see those schools that were really late to the game, I think there's a strong likelihood that they're going to go back to requiring scores for the class of 2022 and beyond, or at whatever point we can return to some semblance of normalcy. So one thing that Ohio State did, historically, Ohio State's early action deadline that you have to apply by to be considered for merit scholarships has been November 1st. For this year, for the class of 2021, they have now moved the application deadline to November 15th. And they even say on there, students, if you take the late October ACT or early November SAT, and your scores arrive to us after November 15th, but you have submitted your application by November 15th, 11:59 p.m., your time zone, then we will still consider those scores. So moving that college application deadline for Ohio State from November 1st to November 15th to allow for later testing than they ever have before, I think is an indicator that their preference would be to have the scores if they're available. I mean, back in April, someone from Ohio State told a colleague of mine at another test prep business in another part of the state that they just didn't see how they would be able to do admissions for that many students based on how they've done admissions without scores, but they finally did succumb. So common question we get, and I see you guys have questions coming in. We're coming up to 1 o'clock. I am going to stay on to answer questions. So feel free to send your questions in. If you have to go, that's fine. We will be reposting this to Facebook as a recording so people can watch it. And anybody who registered and missed it is going to be able to get a recording of this. So questions. How should we prep? So, you know, a lot of people have said, what would you guys do if you were in our boat? You know, all of my kids have graduated high school. Sherry still has this rising senior. So here's our recommendation. A lot of you are in the middle of doing tutoring with us or prep class with us leading to the July 18th ACT. Our recommendation would be that you finish out the 1 to 3 sessions of tutoring that you may have left. It's only going to help future test scores. It's only going to help your academic performance at school. So we would recommend that you finish that out. If you choose not to finish out your last 1, 2, or 3 sessions, we completely understand. No penalty for that. No big deal at all. But then we would tell you that on July 18th, if you have already been tutoring, one-on-one tutoring with us, or in any of our prep classes leading to the July 18th ACT, and you were displaced, we will be offering a free, at our expense, a gesture of goodwill to our clients for appreciating you guys. We will be offering on July 18th at 8:30 a.m. a retired ACT where the students will take a timed test administered via webinar and get our new LEAP Lens report with really deep data. Those are being rolled out with our classes. They were rolled out in May, June, and it's being rolled out for our individual tutoring starting after July 18th. So if you want a sample of what the LEAP Lens report looks like, please send us an email. We would happily send that to you. It gives you deep data on what content you're missing the most, where you guessed and missed, where you have timing issues. So it's really fantastic. So that'll be included on the July 18th free retired ACT that we're giving for anybody who's been involved with us leading to the July 18th test that got displaced and can't take that. So that's the first thing I would do. I would take that. Number 2, we rolled out in January. If we rolled out in June, a program called ACT Perfect Practice. This is designed for students who have the strategies, have learned the strategies through either LEAP or if they feel like they've learned them from someone else. They've learned their strategies through classes and tutoring, and they feel like they have the strategies, but because they've been displaced, they need to continue practicing those strategies because now they're going to have a 2-month lag before they can test in September, okay? Perfect Practice allows your student to go through 4 full-length actual retired ACTs. After each one, you are getting the LEAP Lens report, and that is available on our website. So it is normally, we're giving $100 off for anybody who's been a previous LEAP client. So if your student has done test prep tutoring or a test prep class anytime prior to anytime, that student, not another one of your students, but that student can go ahead and register for our ACT Perfect Practice program that will start on July 31st. It is highly structured and it keeps your student, here's your assignments for week 1. So it's 6 weeks of assignments. Week 1, week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something every single week starting July 31st, leading all the way up to the September ACT. So we just ran that and it was met with fantastic reviews. We actually got an email from a mom this morning who said, my daughter loved it. The structure kept her going. If you offer that again, we're in doing it again. So that launches on July 31st. Any previously client, you get $100 off. So it makes it $195, which is the cost of 3 tutoring sessions. So you get 6 weeks of practice, 4 full-length tests, for the cost of 3 tutoring sessions. So highly recommend. And then you register for your class. So what I wouldn't recommend is, we had a couple families who said, we want to not do our next 2 sessions that we were supposed to do by July 18th, and we just want to do those 2 in September, but we're not going to do perfect practice. I would not recommend that. At that point, I would feel guilty taking somebody's money for those 2 tutoring sessions, because if a student does not practice at all for 2 entire months, coming in to meet with a tutor once or twice is not going to be super productive. So with that, I want to start taking the questions that have come in. If you guys need to hop off, completely understand. We will be reposting this over on Facebook once the recording is available later this afternoon. So running through your questions. Since seniors have first priority, is there a chance that juniors will be admitted to the September test? So great question, Rachel. We don't know for sure that seniors will have priority, but we assume that they will. And if all of the seniors can be accommodated, then certainly they will start allowing juniors to register for those as well. So great question. Karen, so if a student was displaced in July, all other testing sites are now full, just confirming. Yes, at least in the greater Cincinnati area, that is what we believe to be true. Another question. I guess a better question would be, if students are displaced, will they have first priority for September testing? We believe that they will. Next question. I am curious as to the attitude of college admissions offering test optional. If my student decides to not submit ACT because it wasn't as high as he had hoped, say a 26, could the college make an assumption that he likely had a horrible score, or will they give him the benefit of the doubt? You know what? I've always said for years and years and years, I've said, college admissions is subjective. And on the parent side, and even my side professionally, we wish it were black and white. We wish it were predictable. We wish we could know, but it's simply not. So one college admissions officer who's reading a file might say, well, gosh, that student lives in Ohio. I know that they took an ACT or SAT in February or March, and they do have 1 score, yet they chose not to apply with it, then perhaps that wasn't a good score. But what they're telling us is, and I'm trying to just trust that this is true, and this is what they're going with, is you will not be penalized. So in my heart of hearts, I'm holding on to the belief that students who don't submit scores will not be penalized. However, I would say to all of you that are on, if you have scores that are at or above that college's average for the college or the selective program that you're applying to, I would encourage you to go ahead and submit scores for sure. So that would be my recommendation. And that recommendation is coming from the colleges. I even read, last night, might have been in the Wall Street Journal, I read an article where they were quoting college admissions officers, and they were kind of unpacking test optional, and they said exactly what I'm saying here and what I've been saying. I wrote my first test optional blog about COVID back in April. If you want to read it, it's over on our website. They're saying what I've been saying all along. If your scores are at or above, submit. If you didn't get a chance to test or your scores are low, don't submit. you won't be penalized class of 2021. Not necessarily going to hold true for class of 2022. So I think that takes all of our questions. We try to be thorough and quick for you guys. I know this is not fun at all. It's not fun for us either, but we are here to walk it out with you. I encourage you, if you are a displaced tester for July 18th, to look at perfect practice, to stay in perfect practice, just like athletes are always working out and practicing their skills. You need to keep practicing your ACT and SAT testing skills and then retest this fall. If you choose to apply test optional, that's probably completely fine too. So we're here to answer your questions and help you. We are already scheduling test prep one-on-one tutoring. It's online mostly, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting August 1st, we will be back in person at our Mason site. So for those of you that have been dying for in-person, that is available starting August 1st on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The other 5, and then 7 days a week, we are virtual online via Zoom for tutoring. So, and our classes are a mix of in-person and online. So, thank you. Gosh, we wish everybody the best. These are difficult times. Doesn't continue to get any easier yet, does it? So, hang in there. We hope to see you guys soon. Take care.